Okay. Now, your brother, his name was?
His name was Rutledge Pearson. He was named after my father's brother. Rutledge was my father's brother, and Henry was my mother's daddy. His name was Rutledge Pearson. Yeah. He taught school in the public school system, and before he started teaching, he was a baseball player. He played first base on it. He was a good ball player. And then he came to Jacksonville after he played ball for a while to get in the school system. But when he started in, some of the teachers were paying to get a job. He said, I'm not going to pay to get a job. And so he drove taxis for a while. Then he got a call to go in the school system. He got on without paying. He got in the school system. But while in the school system, the N.A.A.C.P needed someone to serve as youth advisor. So he got in charge of youth. So during that time, up around Greenville, North Carolina, a college called A&T College, they started what's called a sit-in demonstration. So we were not allowed to sit at lunchtime and whatnot. So they decided they would go in a store, and when a person get up, they go sit down in the seat. And somebody would get up, first thing you know, there were quite a few of them. And they would sit there, although they weren't serving. They would just sit, because according to federal law, you have a right to go in a place, but there was no law back then that said they had to serve you. So we were fighting to get the law to make them serve. So we were going to, so since they knew they had a right to go in and sit, they would do it. Now sitting in a place in the Southland was kind of dangerous, because somebody allowed to do something to you, pretty bad. But in a sit-in demonstration, a bunch of them would get together and they would go sit in, and they were trained by the minister to be cool, be calm, don't go in acting ugly, and just sit there quiet. And even if somebody throws something on you, do something to you, don't react in ways that's ugly. So they were trained to be good, just sit there. So when my brother heard about it, he somehow got the plan. He trained some kids how to do it. So they had ministers to come in on certain days to talk with them about being nonviolent, being passive. And they had lawyers to come in and talk with them on certain days about the legal matters. And so after they trained for so many days, then they decided to go out and start the demonstration. They started in Woolworth. That was a 5 or 10 cent store downtown. And they also tried to feed it with Woolworth, Crest 5 and 10 cent store, they had a lunch counter. And W.T. Grant, they had a lunch counter. They had a store on Bay Street, a lunch counter. So they would go sit in on one day, then another day they would go sit in on another. And when they go sit down, people would cut the lights out, just close the counter down. And they would just sit there for a while. The first day they did it, the police came and loaded them up in a wagon and kind of put them all in jail. But the lawyers went down and talked to them, so they haven't broken the law. Because the government said you can sit down in a place, but we don't have it in the law. The person that's in business don't have to serve it. So after they tried it for a while, the government finally passed a law outlawing segregation at lunch counters and whatnot. So when they passed the law, the thing you had to do when you go in, if they refuse to serve you, you make a report to the Justice Department. The Justice Department would send someone out to read the law to them. And then, if they did it again, they put them under a court order. If they refused again, then they could be charged with disobeying a court order, and that's when they could be fined. But they had to go through that process. It was kind of a long process. So after they started doing that for a while, and the court started putting the foot down, 1 or 2 people got fined. And that's when they started opening up, letting folks sit. For example, one man came up from Madison, Florida. He decided he'd hold out as long as he could. And so when they got here, we went down to the court to sit on the court to see how they were going to handle it. So they, when they called on it, so the judge was getting ready to sentence. The judge said, "Judge, please, if you just let me go just let me go, and I won't do it anymore." But he tried to write down until right down, and he tried them until they got to the end, before he finally gave in. But he did. So they had these different demonstrations from time to time that helped to exclaim these things so that the public would see. Because see, at one time some of them were saying that everything was fine down here because we wasn't complaining. So we really, it was a problem to us, but we wasn't doing anything. But when they started taking action, then that made the government pay more attention. So they started passing laws. They first passed laws to open the hotels too, because we were allowed. Then they passed a law on desegregating schools. But now when it first started, we had to come up with some plan because see, the neighborhoods were segregated, very segregated. And if we had gone to a neighborhood plan, there still would have been black schools and white schools because the neighborhood was segregated. So they had to come up, it says, even though the neighborhood was segregated, they had to come up with something to show desegregation. So they started a busing, cross busing kids from one side of town to the other. They did that for a while until they passed a law that you could no longer discriminate for persons living in a neighborhood. Then the neighborhoods started becoming integrated. Then they finally dropped the law. They don't have to bus as much as they used to. They bus now just because some kids are a great distance away. But they don't cross bus just for segregation now. They dropped that. Although we didn't want to drop it because we don't feel it's desegregated enough, but it's a long way from what it used to be. Yeah. But we've come a long way. They had to pass also what's called affirmative action. They came up with what's called affirmative action. Now, affirmative action worked this way. If you had men hired on a job and it was all white, it was a job that requires some kind of test or some kind of qualification. If you qualified, it was on the list to get the job, and it was skipping over you. The law said they had to reach down and get a black man and put him on the job, even though he wasn't at the top of the list, in order to show that you were going to desegregate. For example, in the postal service, when you take the test, they establish a list of those who pass. So if the postal service would overlook the black, and it was all white on it, and if there was some blacks already working, they couldn't push from there because it showed blacks were there. If it was all white, no blacks. Then you had to reach down on the list and get a black man that was qualified and high, even though he may not have been at the top of the list. You see what I'm saying? Now that's something that made a lot of whites angry. But see, but the coach said this, you've been skipping them over for 129 years, you've been skipping over. So now you can't do that anymore. So if you're all white, and there are lists of men waiting qualified to get the job, we're not telling you reach back and get a black man that's unqualified. But if he's on the list qualified, even though he may be down on the list, the fact that you don't have anyone on the job, you got to reach down to get one of those blacks that's qualified and hired. So some of the whites was on top of the list got angry because they felt that was discriminating, but it wasn't discriminating. No, it was just affirming that you would have some blacks. And so it's not as strict about enforcing it now since blacks are getting on the job. But they had to do that for a while because some of these big trucking outfits, like haul cars and whatnot, they had all white drivers. And they wouldn't have. Some blacks were well qualified to drive those trucks, but they wouldn't have them. So first law came out and said this, if you got a government contract, like if you're hauling, you got a contract with the government, you definitely wasn't supposed to discriminate.
Yeah. That must have been so scary for the first black person to go into an all-white racist environment.
Yeah, well, in some cases it was kind of because blacks that get on some of those jobs had to be very cautious not to do anything that would cause them easily fined, this type of thing. And then it is true that sometimes you go on a job where it was all white and they didn't want you there, although they had to hire you. Sometimes you had to, there's some things you had to put up with. See, my wife was the first black clerk they hired downtown. My wife, 40 years ago. She was the first black was on the cash register downtown. They had blacks working in the